thank you sincerely.
Schmeigel?
If I may, I'm sorry, I was going to,
I'm sorry.
Ms. Sinclair had done some research, and I gave each of you a copy by email of all of the known violations of those persons who had violated their trust as therapists, those that we had found. There are some that have had multiple violations that have been able to turn in their licenses without any punishment. There are some that have had their licenses taken. She'll go into detail on that, but I want you to know that we've sent all of you the website so you could just click on and see what happened and what they had done and see how extensive this is, as well as with the therapist and the psychiatrist. And what we've done is expand this so the board will be able to make sure all psychological therapists in whatever setting are going to be covered. So with that, Ms. Sinclair.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the Judiciary Committee. The board testified in HGO that out of 204 complaints in the last 2 years, 5 were of a sexual nature. My count says 21. Jerry Hargrove. It says he engaged in inappropriate sexual behavior, sexual exploitation, sexual misconduct with a client. He is quoted to have said, "I decided to surrender my license to avoid potential prosecution." He was allowed to surrender his license. Thomas R. Shipley engaged in sexual opportunities with his client. He was allowed to surrender his license. Charles J. Malinowski had a sexual relationship with client A while she was married. The board suspended his license for 2 years. Richard Depula surrendered his license and said he was found in sexual misconduct with a client. Kevin D. Barwick, he faced a board sanction only after being found guilty of a 4th-degree sex offense. Clifford R. Dunning had inappropriate sexual contact with a client which led to a suicide attempt. He was placed on probation for 1 year after the complaint was filed. His license was not removed. The complaint was the complaint came in March 18, 2011. The board didn't hold their hearing until October 17, 2003. Fred Bruner violated professional competence, client welfare and rights, and dual relationships. He was allowed to surrender his license. Hugh A. Roberts engaged in a sexual relationship that was sent to the Attorney General's office. Ronald Stanley, he was charged with 1 count of sexual assault in the 2nd degree, 1 count of sexual offense in the 4th degree, and he also had a sexual relationship with a client. He had numerous offenses by the LCSW board. He was ordered to surrender his license. Stacey Chiverall, dual relationship sexual misconduct in a residential treatment program. She was placed on suspension for 1 year. She was placed on probation for 1 year, and she was ordered to read Sex in the Forbidden Zone. She is now in good standing. Cassie Mitchell entered into a sexual relationship with a client. Certificate was revoked only because she failed to show up for the hearing. Lawrence Lee Thomas, he has a denial of drug and alcohol certificate because he was convicted of a crime of moral turpitude. Edwin D. Fuller engaged in a sexual harassment and sexual misconduct of 2 female patients. His license was revoked. Gary L. Weinberg engaged in dual relationships, subjected client to psychological trauma, inappropriate sexual contact, sexual language, sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, sexual behavior, and therapeutic deception. His license was revoked. Reginald Webb, he involved in sexual misconduct, sexual relationship with a client who was allowed to surrender. James A. Dennis engaged in a sexual and a dual relationship. His license was revoked for 2 years. He's in good standing. Francisco X. Cummings was found to have violated a sexual relationship and a dual relationship. He was allowed to surrender. Stephen Cyree, sexual relationship and a dual relationship. He was allowed to surrender. Renault Watkins, a sexual relationship with 3 clients. He also had a criminal record. His license was revoked. Richard J. Amira engaged in a sexual and dual relationship that exploited the relationship for personal advantage. He was also a convicted felon. They allowed him to surrender. Richard Edwards, a denial of a renewal. He had criminal charges, lied on an application. He was found to have involved in harassment and a threat to beat a client. He also had a sexual relationship with a client. I don't know how the board decides which cases should be forwarded to the state's attorney. Out of 5 cases, only 2 were sent to the Attorney General. Mine is one of them that was not sent. What I'm asking you to do is make this a crime. And right now, there are therapist abuse victims watching this live. I speak for every single one of them who wants this to be a crime. And then they want me to take it to other states to help them. By this not being a crime, what we're really saying is you aren't worthy. We don't care about your pain. Only some of you were worthy of it being a crime. Only some of you were raped. Only some of you were sexually assaulted. So by not making this a crime, we're really telling them that they're not worthy. They're not worth it. They have to suffer in pain. I'm asking for a favorable vote to make this a crime. Thank you.
One of the biggest problems that we had with the board was they wanted to make this a discretionary, a may, as to whether or not they do background checks. And we believe, it should be a shall, and that's something that we're pushing, is to make sure. And we're a little bit shocked that the board would once again, put in a opposition to this, when in fact we've met every request that they had to make sure that it wasn't 2 years, that it is forever. You can't have the sexual relationship. Originally, we took another state, New York, and said we'd use what they had. The board came in and said, we don't allow it ever. Said, fine, we'll give you that. So we've met everything they have. And then when we went to HDO, they put in opposition and then came in and said, well, we're not really in opposition now because he's met all this. And the members were kind of upset, and why aren't you supporting it? So they're going to come in again and tell you, well, we put in an opposition, but now we're no longer in opposition, but we're not going to support it. And I think that, this is something that this needs to be passed. It needs to protect our sisters, our daughters, our family members from therapist abuse. You go there to be protected, not to be made a victim. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you have to be licensed to be a counselor in Maryland?
I believe you do.
Because I was under the impression that you didn't.
No, you do. And there's a gentleman, there are 2 witnesses here who will be able to testify to all of that.
And you have to be licensed to be a therapist?
Yes.
So you can't hang out a shingle and say, I'm a counselor?
No.
Is the certification, is it simply that people are allowed to be certified, or is that a requirement by law?
I believe it's a requirement by law to have the title and the designation. And there's a vast variety of everything from counselors to the psychologists, psychiatrists, and all different designations that they have.
Now, we would punish a doctor for having an inappropriate relationship, would we not?
Yes, I would hope we would.
Right? Wouldn't that be, isn't that a crime in and of itself?
I don't think it is. I know that psychologists and psychiatrists, currently it is not a crime.
So it's not a crime for a psychiatrist to engage in
This
that
bill
kind
will
of
make it one.
Right. But right now it's not.
No, it is not.
Not for any doctor or dentist or anything like that.
Not in the therapeutic setting. I'm not sure about the physical doctor, but as far as psychologists, psychiatrists, it is not.
Thank
They
you.
have a professional APA set of rules that they're supposed to follow, and many states have codified those, and I think that will be one of the next steps we take, is to try to codify the APA standards that they follow, but they do not in any way punish you by, incarcerating you for violating it.
Delegate Spiegel, I have a, well, first let me say, it's clear that a lot of thought has gone into this, and this is, I think for all of us, it's very shocking to see. My questions are more about the legal aspects of it, and more specifically, I wonder if is there anywhere else in our code that, where the state criminalizes an otherwise consensual sexual relationship of adults, other than, I think, in the 4th degree statute with persons in
we got to
position of
start from
authority?
a basic premise. It can never, ever be consensual. The state of Maryland sets out that if there is a disparity...
Well, I appreciate that. I'm curious as to...
Well, you just said otherwise consensual. It is not consensual.
Okay, well, how about I
rape is not
rephrase?
consensual.
I appreciate your point. How about I rephrase it? Are there other places in the code presently where relationships based off of a sexual relationship is criminalized by relationship.
Teachers can't have sex with their
Well,
students.
right. I would say other than the fourth-degree sex offense person in a position of authority, are there other places that we've done that?
No, that's what this would hope to do, is put it in a position of authority, and that would be a fourth-degree sex offense. We're
Okay.
putting them in with the teachers and with others.
And are there the reason I was asking that is I wonder if there are other places where the sexual relationship is criminal after the relationship terminates, because it seems to be that the text of the
No, this
statute
is when
does
it
this.
begins, it's criminal. It's not after it terminates, it's when it begins. It may not begin ever. You may never have a sexual relationship with somebody who you have a power position over.
Now, isn't there some place, and let me see if I can Google it real quick or search it quick in your bill. Isn't there a place where it says that there may not be sex 2 years after?
No, that's been deleted. That was to say that you could not have sex until 2 years after. That's been deleted. The amendments have been placed in.
Oh, I see. You have
and you can
amendments.
never have sex. That's what
Okay.
I said.
So that-
never, ever can you have sex.
Okay,
We
so
took
that
the
part
board's
where it
position.
says the receive counseling or therapy from a professional counsel, blah, 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 within the 2 years preceding, that part
It's
is...
never, ever appropriate. It's rape.
No, I appreciate that, but just to be clear, you have amendments that take that out.
The amendment did take that out, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions of this witness, these witnesses? Who else is here to testify in favor? Come forward.
Thank you. Sorry. No. What? They're all given to him. They got them. It's not me to give them to him. It's the chairman. Well, did he make it? Okay. No. Thank you.